Spokane, yeah, or that one, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did that, just refreshed or
Yeah,
something.
80% of the town.
So it's recorded.
Well, my sister lives in Spokane, and I guess they were on evacuation alert, you know.
Yeah.
but-
Yes, I'm gonna take those out. Nope, I'm gonna go out.
And then my grandson is down in California working for a power company down there. They had to leave early today because they were evacuating the trailer park where
They
they
shut
were
down
all
the
parked.
border. They shut down the border.
I know they did.
California.
I-5, yeah.
They're turning around, sending it back now.
Mhm.
I guess they went jump. Because I know why. Oh, I was trying to bring her down.
Yeah, I turned mine
They said
down
they
too.
did that. He said it did nice sleep last night. I'm gonna have to sort of this crap over
Okay, so it's
Or mute your audio, please. And please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I got control again. Okay. All right. Mr. Boyce, you take the roll?
Sure. Councilmember Holland.
Present.
Councilmember Rounds.
Here.
Councilmember Chapman.
Here.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Here.
Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Plaza.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
All council members are here and accounted for this evening. Does anyone have a proclamation for me? Do you have one down there?
Let's see. I've got it on the screen.
I don't see one here. I can,
Over here.
I'll have a hard copy tonight. Let me see here if I can't see that far. Give me 1 second here, I can pull it up on my phone, maybe.
Is that a little bigger?
Still. Let me pull it up on my phone real quick here. Let's see if this one's it right here. That's the Planning Commission. Nice. Here, I'll pull it up right here, Mr. Boyce. I've got it. It's a little bit bigger here on my phone. All right. Proclamation for the Office of the Mayor, National Constitution Week, September 17th to the 23rd, 2020. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law. And whereas September 17th, 2020 marks the 233rd anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through to the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, William A. Finn, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Woodland, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask all our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, dated this 8th day of September 2020. All right, moving on through the agenda. And I need the, thank you. Thanks, sir. All right, for items not on the agenda, we have no one signed up. Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to step forward for items not on the agenda? Now's your opportunity. Seeing no one, is there anyone online that would like to speak up for items not on the agenda? Seeing no one, moving on to items on the agenda. First up, We have, is it Tevin?
Yes.
Tevin, I'll have you step up to the microphone there, state your name and what you're here to speak of, and we will give you 5 minutes.
Yeah. My name is Tevin Atkinson. I'm here to speak for ordinance number 1464, permitting retail sales of marijuana. So, my name is Tevin Atkinson. I live in La Center, Washington, and have been a Clark County resident for the past 10 years of my life. I graduated from Richfield High School in 2015 and just started my family here. I currently work as a Washington, Alaska, and Hawaii Territory Manager for Hawthorne Gardening, formerly Sunlight Supply, who used to have manufacturing here in Woodland. I've been aware that the City Council is going to hold a vote to allow an I-502 dispensary in Woodland, Washington. I've been working with Justin from Indoor Garden Supply for many years now, and have had the pleasure of becoming his friend. When I heard that the opportunity to open a dispensary in Woodland, I was very excited. For the past few years, I've worked secondhand in the cannabis industry. It has always been a dream of mine to own a cultivation facility or retail store. I thought that this may be the perfect opportunity to achieve my dreams. After speaking to a few people, it sounds like when it comes time to vote, this dream may not become a reality. I would like to take this opportunity to share my vision with all of you. Justin's new 4,800 square foot building would be key to this whole plan. The space has prime I-502 or I-5 exposure and sits far enough away from the neighborhoods. The city of Woodland is expanding, much like Ridgefield and La Center. If a dispensary is going to come to Woodland, it needs to be clean, friendly, and professional. Cannabis is no longer something you buy off the one guy you went to high school with. I won't go into all of the benefits you see plastered all over social media. At the end of the day, we're talking about adults who want to relax. Instead of wine, it's a joint at night. I want to create an environment where people can feel confident in the products they are buying and help to end the stigma surrounding the cannabis industry. After all, Woodland already has a cannabis industry here. For example, Advanced Nutrients just hired an additional 70 employees who primarily sells to marijuana cultivators. Alongside that, Woodland has I-502 farms in town. If you just go to one side of the track, there's multiple farms that we have operating within or not within town, but very close. I strongly feel that if Woodland does not capitalize on this opportunity, it would be missing out. Eventually, Ridgefield or La Center will lift their moratorium, and the tax dollars will follow. My business partner and I feel that we can really do well in Woodland. My partner already has experience in running successful multi-million-dollar cannabis businesses in Washington State. My dream paired with his expertise would result in a winning combo. I want to improve Woodland. I don't just want a yes vote from the City Council. I want to know what we can do to make it a better place. Coming from the agriculture side, I'd love to see what we can do with help on community gardens, botany classes, or even helping with the city garden beds. I really feel like we could make an impact in Woodland, and it would be something that's close to my hometown as well. And that's all I've got for you.
Thank you, sir. John Grode? No? Okay. Jennifer? You stepping forward to speak this evening? Are you here with Miss Joy?
I guess I'll speak when it's my turn.
Okay, gotcha. Kurt? Let me step forward. Please let us know your name and what you're speaking to, and I'll allow you 5 minutes.
All right, my name's Kurt Stonex, last name Stonex, and I'm with Olson Engineering, and my address is 222 East Evergreen, Vancouver, Washington. And I'm here representing Quail Homes. Mr. Gerard is the owner. He's the developer of the Heron Meadows project, which you'll be hearing later on. And I just wanted to let you know we are here, and we're in support of the staff report as written and approved by Planning Commission. And we just know that it'll be a great project. Quail builds a really quality home, and we're just here for questions when it gets to an action item. So that's
perfect.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Dallas? Yeah. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have you step forward, state your name, and I'll let us know what you're here to speak on, and I'll give you 5 minutes.
I'm here to speak on cannabis, and really I hope to maybe answer questions you might have. I've been in the industry since the beginning, and I own a campus with a dozen licensed facilities that'll be open by the end of the year. We have 9 operating this year. We also manage retail, within our group, and I thought I'd just tell you about the economic development. We're in rural eastern Washington with that particular campus, and we hire about 100 full-time employees on our site. And then seasonally, we bring in 40 at a time to come in at the harvest and the planting season that make their way through the farm as well. So the benefit going to the retail side, the benefit is the sales tax, and I did bring a couple pamphlets that shows some of the dollars that the state's brought in, over $540 million in sales tax, and $6 billion in sales for cannabis. But I thought I might offer myself to answer any questions you might have related to the cannabis industry from, my experience.
So at this point, council will not engage with those that are here speaking. You'll only speak with me.
Okay, all right,
So-
I understand. So again, I just wanted to emphasize the jobs that are created. Each facility is 10 to 25, probably on average, employees. A retail store would be somewhere 10 to 20 people working there, generally hired locally. People won't commute across the state for those jobs. But they're all, 15 plus, dollar an hour, depending on skill set jobs. I guess that's about it. I did bring a couple packages. I don't know if I can leave you some papers.
You can leave those, absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
And you can just flip through it, and there is some Cowlitz County information, but this is all related to retail, and then you can pick out the amount of sales tax these stores are getting. And
I'll take that
might
from
help
you, pass it
Okay.
down here. And I can keep these.
Yeah, you
Okay,
can-
perfect, thank you.
If you want to get one more. There's one more if someone would like it.
Perfect.
I didn't know how many council.
No, that's perfect. We'll pass them down and have them look while we go here.
Okay, well, thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming out tonight. I'll go ahead and pass it. You guys can pass amongst yourselves. Miss Joy.
Hello, Joy Asmussen, and I'm here not to talk about cannabis. Yay, preschool, Woodland Co-op Preschool. So I am here to speak on behalf of, so I'm wearing my preschool hat tonight. I wear lots of hats. Most of you guys all know me, not everyone, but most of you. I've been involved with the city, or with, not the city council, Woodland Co-op Preschool for about 22 years-ish as a volunteer. And Jennifer is our preschool teacher. She's been our main preschool teacher for over 16 years. So we are here because we heard that the city council had some funds to hopefully help save some woodland businesses. And the Woodland Co-op Preschool is completely funded by the parents that attend. So every year, those parents pay for their children's tuition. We are not state funded at all. And those people help pay the tuition, which helps pay our teachers so currently we have 2 teachers. Our preschool kids have been very known to be the most prepared for kindergarten in the Woodland School District. It's just an amazing program for the entire family, and we do not want to see it go away. So we're really struggling because of the current situation. Financially, we have a lot of parents who don't want to pay for preschool when they have, teaching preschool online is tricky. We are doing it. We have a lot lower enrollment than normal. Normally, we have people waiting at the doors with a huge waiting list to get into our group. So trying to teach online preschool is tricky. We are definitely taking a stab at it, but a lot of parents aren't really willing to pay the tuition to do that. So we would like to ask for the funds that you guys are going to talk about tonight to help pay our teachers to continue our really quality education program that we have for our early kids. And we're also here for questions. So if you guys have any questions for us when the time comes, we'll be here.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Joy. Mr. Fredericks.
Just a question for staff on that specific consent item. The last sentence says staff recommends approval of the request, but it's contingent upon state approval. Has that been satisfied?
It has not yet. So we have a question into the Department of Commerce asking if this entity is eligible to receive CARES Act funds. So we've had a turnover in personnel that are assigned to the city of Woodland, so it's taking a little bit longer than.
Okay.
Not on our side, on the state side.
On the state
Yeah, I
side.
understand.
So if the city council passes this, it will still be contingent upon the approval from the state.
That is correct.
Because this is part of a consent agenda, we're going to most likely lump this all in and it's all going to be approved unless somebody pulls it for consideration. I just want to make sure that that's understood by staff, that we're not approving this if it's not acceptable with the state.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Fredericks. Anyone else in the gallery for items? Oh, Mr. Plaza,
I
yes.
just have a quick question. If this is fallen under consent items, I've done business with the Woodland Co-op. Do I need to recuse myself from that portion?
Only if, I believe Mr. Smith, and I'll let him speak at time, will need to recuse himself. At this time, it is believed that this is money going towards a teaching position and not goods, commodities, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I don't believe that you would need to. If you're not getting a financial gain, then no.
All right.
Okay. Anyone else in the gallery this evening for items on the agenda? Now's your opportunity to step forward. Seeing no one, going to online. Mr. Olson, I have you signed up. If you want to unmute yourself now, please state your name, what you'll be speaking on, and I'll allot you 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. So hi, everyone. I'm Randy Olson at P.O. Box 568 here in Woodland, Washington. I just wanted to take a little time to speak in favor of ordinance number 1464 to allow the retail sale of marijuana in Woodland. I don't think I have a lot to add personally that hasn't already been said in other testimony, in public testimony in favor of the ordinance. Actually, what I wanted to see is allowable is in the last city council meeting, there was a discussion of this ordinance, and it actually sparked a pretty large and heated discussion on our city Facebook group by many locals here giving their opinions about whether we should allow the retail sale of marijuana. So I wanted to see, hopefully, well, you can answer, whether I could just read a selection of comments, and they're on a public forum, so they could be thought of as public testimony.
Okay.
So I just wanted to see, is it allowable to read some of these comments that came from that discussion?
Yep, you've got a little over 4 minutes left to go.
Okay, great. So I'll just start reading in rapid fire. So this one was posted by Mackenzie Thomas. Mackenzie said, "I think we should allow marijuana stores because I think there are a lot of people who could use it without having to drive so far away. For example, my mother has MS, and it has really helped her with that. She also has a paralyzed leg. The doctors put her on 960 milligrams of morphine per day. Because of marijuana, she is now completely off the pain medication. For her to drive to Longview and have to get her wheelchair out of the car just isn't that convenient. I think it would be helping a lot of people to allow the retail sale of marijuana in Woodland." Alexandra Jolly posted, "I think it would be a great idea. It's legal and frankly better than some of the other substances that are circulating. Plus, the tax benefit to the city would be an additional plus." Ashley Masters, very brief comment, "Why not take in the taxes? It's more revenue for the city." I also made sure to select as many as I could negative comments just to show it's not all positive. Austin Bain said, "I say no. I think it brings the wrong crowd to that neighborhood," and that sparked a very heated discussion. Heather McFarland Tetzloff, I hope I'm reading these names right. "Definitely, I have multiple sclerosis and have to drive to Longview or Vancouver to get my CBD. This would be so much more convenient. Also, wouldn't the city get more money from them? That would benefit the schools." Catherine Ard Hunt, "No, we already have enough ways to break families apart without making it any easier." And Catherine did also say that she works with people who suffer from addiction, and that by her belief, marijuana does not make the case any easier for folks who are recovering from addiction. Tawny Knapp, "It's been legalized by the state. Get over it and open a store. I've been driving to Battleground and Longview, and that is annoying." Just saying. Mel Sharp, "It is better than drinking and would be a great revenue stream to Woodland." Jan Appling says, I agree, it would be a benefit, the community, and allow more money to be available for schools, roads, etc. Domingo Martin Estrada Jr., why not? I mean, people are going to do it anyway, might as well get a little money out of it, plus bring a few jobs here. Beth Slider Kester, after owning the liquor store for 26 years, I think it is safer to have a pot store. I don't smoke, but I know plenty of other people that use edibles for various health issues. The city gets a certain amount of money from the taxes collected. Jody Bartkowski Hertz, why not? If someone wants to open one more, power to them. We need profitable businesses here. It's legal. Kids will get it regardless of 6 blocks or 16 miles. It's safer and doesn't have the addictive properties of alcohol.
1 minute, Mr. Olson.
Okay, good, perfect. Jeff Pickner, sure, why not? It would create revenue for the town, and it's not like people won't just drive down the road to get it elsewhere. Jason Holdall, of course we should allow the retail sale of marijuana in Woodland. They sell liquor at least a dozen places, and alcohol is astronomically more destructive and has zero medical benefit as compared to cannabis. I know a lot of people, especially veterans, that use it for medical needs. So that's it. Hopefully this is useful feedback from members of the Woodland community that unfortunately just can't make it here to this meeting for various reasons. Hopefully this is useful feedback for the City Council.
All right, thank you, Mr. Olson. Appreciate your testimony. Anyone else that is online for items on the agenda this evening? All right, seeing none. Moving on to agenda approval.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Plaza, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Mr. Boyce, you take the roll.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
No.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
All right, the agenda has been approved with a 6-1 vote. Moving on to reports of City Council.
I attended the Chamber Golf Tournament last week.
How was-
Was it the week before? But anyway, it's been since we had a council meeting, and Chief Kelly and them kind of swept the prize list, except that we thought our team did pretty lousy, but actually we came in first place, second flight. So
Oh, good for you.
we did just lousy enough to come in at the half. So it was fun.
Nice. How many teams?
We had 15 teams.
Nice, that's good turnout.
It's just, and I did tee times for the teams rather than all being bunched together, so it worked out a little bit better. We kind of learned by what Rotary did, and so we like to have a luncheon afterwards, but this year it just wasn't feasible to have it that way, so we had a box lunch. But it was enjoyable, I think, by all.
Good,
So,
good. Thank you.
I was there too.
I know, you two always have something to say, so that's why I was leaning around Mr.
You'll probably do
Fredericks.
it in under chambers.
All right, seeing nothing else there, reports of standing committees, finance in general.
Yes, we met this evening. We reviewed the sales tax August monthly report. We are $35,000 ahead, mostly from the new Be Young RV. Has certainly helped with that. So that's actually good news. We were able to recall the Clerk-Treasurer, Clerk 3, the permit clerk, which is a change from bumping on recall, and the Public Works clerk. The utility rate study and timeline, which is scheduled for this evening, a workshop for tonight. The audit 2019 period is beginning this week. Ms. Holland, we appreciate she will be attending over the phone on the opening of that audit call. The 2021 call to budget notice, prep and calendars is in the process of pending, but that has been given to staff. We have also made recommendations to refer items that are currently on the agenda for discussion this evening. The newspaper of record, the committee referred to council with the due pass recommendation that the reflector be selected. He also made a motion to refer the Cowlitz 911 service level agreement with the due pass recommendation. The ordinance number 1470, the BLS business license ordinance, referred to council with the due pass recommendation. We had some discussion regarding the website and have requested, the committee requested that that be part of the 2021 enhancement budget. And let me see. And there was some discussion, we have requested some additional information regarding moving the utility billing to monthly versus every other month. We have requested some additional information from staff, and we're waiting on that before we can make a recommendation to the full council. And that was it. And our next meeting is scheduled for, I don't know when. It's not on the agenda.
October 5th.
October 5th.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Fredericks? All right, seeing none, thank you. Moving on to Human Resources.
Okay, we had our meeting today at 5:30, and there wasn't really a whole lot passed, just a lot of dotting i's and crossing t's type stuff. However, we did get an update on the upcoming negotiations with the Woodland Police Officers Association. We have a date set for later this month, and that'll be the first actual meeting of the negotiations for this year, so hopefully they'll go well. And other than that, that's about it. And our next meeting is on Monday, October 5th at 5:30, right here.
Questions for Mr. Plaza? Thank you, Mr. Plaza. Moving on to reports of advisory committees, Mrs. Graham for Chamber of Commerce.
Sure. The Chamber, the Visitor Center is now open 4 days a week, Thursday through Sunday. I think permits and things like that are available. I believe our executive director took care of that the other day. And then about our golf tournament, it was a beautiful day. Everything went really well, and Carol and her crew and did a good job getting everybody in and out and down the road, or down the greens or fairway, and it went really well. Proud to announce that Chief Kelly's team took top place. Chief Kelly's son took the long, what is it called, Carol?
Long drive.
Long drive.
For men.
I'm not a golfer, for men. And also another one member of Chief Kelly's team took the Pink Lady, which was half of the pot in the draw. So that was all good. And on next Tuesday, the 15th, we are planning on having a Zoom meeting discussion between Mr. Will Finn and Mr. Arn Mortensen, who are running for county commissioner. That date on that is 9/15, and just be on the lookout. I do not have a particular time set or the address information to get connected to that yet. So it will be posted, blasted out to our membership and whatnot as soon as, probably within the next day or two. And I think that's it, and hopefully someday we'll have meetings again and everybody can join us in person.
Absolutely. Thank you. Questions for Mrs. Graham? All right. Mrs. Rounds for Cowlitz-Waukegan Council of Governments.
They're still not meeting in person yet, so I have
Okay.
nothing to report. So.
Thank you. DWR, Mrs. Graham?
There is a meeting scheduled on 9/22 at 2 p.m.
All right.
And-
Miss Coleman is getting her act together.
Yep.
All right. Hey, it's not your turn to speak, Miss Coleman. Thank you.
Well, I just looked at the face, since we have some money that we need to spend, I want to make sure that we spend it.
Gotcha. All right, looking forward to seeing what the group comes up with. Reports of city officers. As many have stated, there's not a lot of events going on right now. I will ask that council, take the heat off of some council members here, when it comes to consent items, to pull consent item E for discussion, and that is the CARES Act funding for the Woodland Co-op preschool, due to some folks on this panel that are on this board that are unable to vote. So I ask that somebody pull that before approval. And I will save my utility comments for the workshop. And I failed to realize on the agenda, there is an email in front of you from Mrs. Darlene Johnson with two items of note. One is the water and sewer rate increases and ordinance number 1464. So those have been entered into the section for items on the agenda, both of those, but a copy has also been provided as requested. So that is in front of you for consideration. And Mr. Boyce.
Okay, I know we have a long workshop, so I'm just going to keep it short. We're still recruiting planning commission members. We have 2 vacancies we need to fill, so please get the word out, and hopefully we can get some good volunteers. The only other thing I wanted to mention is planning commission meeting September 17th, 7 p.m. Hopefully we have a quorum, and that's all for tonight.
Questions for Mr. Boyce? All right, seeing none, and before we go into staff reports here, I would like to comment on Resolution 727, which is the Heron Meadows subdivision, and I'd like to recognize those folks there in the gallery this evening. I'm looking forward to this project. I think it's much needed here in Woodland. We do need some housing, and it's been a while since we've had a last housing project we had was the townhomes that were built just off Lewis River Road. So we appreciate you choosing Woodland as a spot to build our community and create another development here. So thank you for being here and willing to take those questions from council this evening if needed. So moving on to staff reports. As past practice has shown, we have attached those reports for council, but if there's anything in particular you'd like to ask staff, now's your opportunity. If not, we'll move on to the rest of the agenda. All right, seeing no questions out of staff, moving on to consent items.
Move to approve the consent items with the exception of E.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Plaza. Mr. Boyce, will you please take the roll on consent items A through J with the exception of E, please?
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Consent items have been approved with the exception of E. Moving on to consent item E, authorize $20,000 of CARES Act funds for Woodland Co-op preschool contingent on Washington Department of Commerce approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
No discussion.
Councilmember Chapman.
Nothing.
Further discussion.
Question on voting on whether or not I'm allowed to vote on it.
Councilmember Smith.
So my daughter is currently enrolled. If this does pass, there would be no financial gain for me. I'm pretty sure that I would have to meet all of the agreements that are made for my financial obligation. But my daughter is currently enrolled in this program. And I guess, can I participate in the discussion if she is?
I know my opinion, but I'll defer to Mr. Boyce.
Technically, if you have a financial stake in the outcome of the vote, you must abstain. Right now, I'm hearing you don't have a financial stake in whether or not they receive the funds.
So if they don't receive the funds and there's an increase in cost,
Well,
then would he gain from that?
maybe we should ask
Ms. Randolph?
Mr. Randolph.
Mr. Randolph? There he is.
Yes, sir.
So the question on the floor is if the financial interest in consent item E by Councilmember Smith, he has a student at the Woodland Co-op preschool. If this is approved, there is no financial gain, but if it is denied this evening, it's potential that there could be a financial loss to Mr. Smith with increased tuition fees. So the question on the floor is, should he abstain or is he allowed to vote this evening?
And I'm sorry, explain again to me the conflict or the potential conflict.
$20,000 allotment to the Woodland Co-op preschool. Mr. Smith has a child enrolled in the school.
And so the child would be benefited by the donation?
Potentially. If it's not approved this evening, Mr. Smith has the potential to have to pay increased tuition costs.
I guess that could be a question for,
I would say since there's a potential direct benefit, it would be better for him to abstain and not take part in the conversation, but he certainly doesn't have to leave.
Okay.
What about me?
Question on the floor for Mr. Plaza. He does business with consumables or commodities with the preschool. These funds will be used for employment of educators. Does he need to abstain as well?
He would be a paid educator, is that
No,
the question?
he sells items to the school itself.
And how would that connect? Simply because they would have more money that he might get some more business?
Well, the money is strictly used for education, for employees, and not towards the commodities. I think there's a concern that there is still a connection there. This money would not be going directly to Mr. Plaza through his business.
I don't see a conflict there then.
Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Randolph. Further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Boyce, you'll take the vote on consent item E, the authorization of $20,000 of CARES Act funds. Oh, you got something? No.
I just have to abstain, right?
Correct. Woodland Co-op preschool contingent on Washington Department of Commerce approval.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Abstaining.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Consent item E has passed, 6 yeses and 1 abstention. Moving on to action items. What time is it? Moving on to action items. Clerk-Treasurer's Office, ordinance number 1470, directing partnership between the City of Woodland and Business Licensing Services, BLS, for the administration of the City of Woodland's business licensing, and authorize the mayor to sign related paperwork. First reading.
Move to adopt ordinance number 1470, first reading.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Plaza. Councilmember Fredericks.
We can do this now, or we can be forced to do it later, so we might as well get on board.
Councilmember Plaza.
No comment.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Boyce, will you please take the roll on ordinance number 1470?
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Ordinance number 1470 has passed. Moving on to action item L, Resolution 727, review and approval with conditions of the Heron Meadows 31-lot subdivision as recommended by the Woodland Planning Commission.
Move to adopt resolution number 727.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
I agree with the comments by the mayor earlier. I think these are going to be quality homes. I think it's something that Woodland would be proud of having. And I'm thankful that they decided to build here, so It's desperately needed.
Councilmember Chapman.
I agree. Nice to see another nice quality subdivision coming into Woodland.
Further discussion? Mr. Boyce, will you please take the roll on Resolution 727, Heron Meadows 31 lot subdivision?
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Action item L has passed. Moving on to action item M, discussion for ordinance number 1456, council rules regarding citizen address requirement.
Thank you.
Without objection, can we discuss it? There should be
Yes.
no motion yet.
Oh, okay. Open for discussion, Mr. Fredericks. Oh.
I'm going to defer this to Ms. Holland.
Okay.
She's the one that raised it, so.
Councilmember Holland.
Okay, so after it was brought to my attention by some folks in the community that not everybody has to give a physical address, in our last handful of meetings, people have been able to just say P.O. Box or their home address or City of Woodland. So there's no set thing that anybody needs to do, and if you notice, it's only actually applies to items not on the agenda, not items on the agenda, if I remember correctly. So one, I don't know why we need a person's their home address for one and not the other, because it doesn't really make sense to have it on one or the other. Secondly, I did actually speak to Mr. Randolph. I emailed him and asked him if there was a reason behind it, and he found the same things I found, where it was just part of council processes that, and as far back as I got was 2013, and then I kind of lost it. I could not find beyond 2013 to try and give me an explanation as to why we require that of people. Some folks in the community find it to be a barrier to give their home address. They don't want to have retaliation for comments that they make. And I totally agree. Some of the things I noticed in the last several years of meetings, one gal, for instance, she came in, she gave her address, explained why she was here and that she's out of town for 3 months. So we've now told the public that she's her home address and that she's not there and she lives alone. So that's another issue I didn't quite, in this day and age, that's not necessarily a good idea to broadcast. And I think really when I first started holding up a cell phone and filming meetings for people to be able to participate, and then we eventually, now the cameras are in the corner to do that, I don't necessarily think that the processes that are in place kept up with technology. So, I mean, I went back as far as 2013, and I didn't go any further. I figured 7 years was plenty, but I don't know why we would need somebody's home address to hear their comments on something. I think if somebody was just a resident, or inside, outside city limits, or if they have a business here, what's their vested interest in being here? I think that's kind of enough. We're not collecting their information for a mailing list or anything, so that was why I wanted to bring that forward.
What has been the purpose of asking their address?
These rules were in place before I got here, so perhaps some of the more senior folks.
I can maybe speak to the intent on that. I think the intent was for staff to be able to contact people if they raised questions or concern. We had their information. I would have to agree with Ms. Holland. I don't think it's appropriate that we ask the address. I don't even think it's appropriate that we ask their name. They can come up to the podium. I'm John Doe. Here's my 5 minutes of what I would like to say speak to the council about. I mean, So I have no objections to changing the language to strike anything that has to do with address. I agree.
I have no objection either.
Mr. Plaza?
Just in reference to the not on the agenda and items on the agenda address requirement, honestly, I think the subjects on the agenda address requirement was just a slip up by whoever wrote this, because under 11.4, manner of addressing the council, it states that each...
I'm sorry, Mr. Fredericks just said I wrote this. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you, Mr.
Fredericks
Plaza.
screwed up. It says under 11.4, which is immediately after subjects on the agenda, it says each person addressing the council will step up to the speaking table, give his or her name and address. So that covers both on and not on the agenda. That said, I agree with Ms. Holland. I don't think it's a good idea, especially with the way social media is these days, for people to give out their addresses on a live feed or even a recorded one. Perhaps we can come up with something so if people want follow-up, there's a form or something that the clerk or the city administrator, one of us, could give to citizens who want us to follow up with them, and we can do it that way without having to broadcast to the entire world that this person lives at this house. So that's all I got.
Can we just make a motion to amend this?
Yeah, I could do that if you'd like.
Yes, you'd probably word it a lot better than I would.
So I'd like to make a motion to remove address from section 11.2 and 11.4 on the council rules of procedure.
Second.
All right, motion on the floor is going to be action item M by Councilmember Frederick, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. The removal of address in sections 11.2 and 11.4 on ordinance number 1456 regarding council rules. Councilmember Fredericks.
Those are the only two areas where address is referenced. Is that correct?
That's what I could find.
11.2 and 11.4?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate Ms. Holland bringing this forward, because that's not something that I don't think we've considered that, and she makes a valid point.
Councilmember Rounds.
No comment.
Further discussion? Mr. Plaza.
I think it would be a good idea, though, if we do ask if they are citizens of Woodland residents or own a business in Woodland, because on the off chance that, we do have a hot button item and we get a bunch of rabble-rousers from out of town coming in to, raise hell, it would be nice to know if we need to file them away, or because they are citizens of Woodland and they are who we represent, to
Couldn't
pay
they just
more
say,
attention to them.
I live in Woodland, or I
Yeah.
have a business in Woodland, or
Exactly.
something to that effect.
Yeah.
But technically, they're not required to.
No, they're not required.
And you could have, someone like myself who would just say, I'm not giving you that information.
You would be that person.
I mean, and I think we need to respect those individuals that don't want us to have their name, don't want us to have their address. They want to maybe address their government as a business owner, as a citizen, and maybe someone maybe they're just driving through, would like to compliment us on our restaurants, how wonderful they are.
So are we going to get rid of the name requirement too, then?
Well, it's in there because we're asking people kindly tell us who you are. But
Right.
they don't have to. That's the whole point.
Okay.
No one has to give the address today either.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Holland.
the sign-in sheet, what's on there? Do we have, it's been a while since I signed in on one. What does it say?
Let's see here. On the agenda, we have name, address, and phone number, and same for items not on the agenda as well.
So there you go, right there. They have a contact, because don't you give this to the clerks?
This is recorded in case there's
So-
follow-up.
Okay, so then, there is no
Follow-up
need for
right
them to
there.
repeat it at the podium, then. Okay.
And it is discoverable, though, as a public record.
Yes.
You can request a copy of who are the people that signed in, what's their address, and what's their phone number.
But if they don't, well, unless the people already know them, which there would be no point in them getting a public record given their address, they won't know who Joe was from who Bill was when they come up to the podium to speak, unless he decides to tell his name.
Well, you guys are in active discussion. I'll ask the question when we're done.
Anyway, so I'm fine with that. Never mind.
Well, I mean, on that form, you could just put town, where are you from? Woodland. And then if they wanted to be contacted for whatever reason, they could check a box and then somebody could get that. Because I know people have come and spoke, and you have asked, Mr. Mayor, have asked, leave your information with the clerk so I can follow up with you. So those are things you already do. So I think in that regard, I mean, that's protecting people's stuff from being out here. And yes, the being discoverable and being in a search, my concern is like people who maybe don't necessarily want an ex-husband, crazy ex-husband or something to find them, but they felt strongly about an issue and came here. Well, we don't, so in that regard, I don't think their home address and stuff need to be on the interwebs or whatever, but, so yeah, whatever, I know we already have the sign-in sheet, and I was kind of like not down for that being out there where anybody could like walk up and take a snapshot. I almost feel like it should be inside where we can see if somebody's snapshotting it, you know what I mean? Just because, I mean, there shouldn't be barriers to people participating. That's all I'm trying to get at, is I don't think there should be barriers in people participating in local government. So.
And there are crazy ex-wives too.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's. So.
Way to throw us under the bus, Mrs. Hall.
I work with a girl who listens to a lot of those like murder podcasts. Yeah. And so all the things that we, these kind of things, it's all the things they tell you not to do so that, bad things don't happen.
I don't have a problem
Mr.
with
Smith?
Getting rid of the names and address on there. But just for the record, anybody who owns a home in Woodland, it's public record who owns that home, so you can look that info up. So,
sure. And the motion that's on the floor is currently removing address only, so.
Correct.
This needs to be discussed later then.
So we'll do this one, and then I'll go back and dig up why we make them do that, and then we'll talk about that another day. How's that? Will that work?
There you go.
Okay.
Sure. All right, anything further? Seeing nothing else, will Mr. Boyce please take the roll on the removal of address in sections 11.2 and 11.4 in ordinance number 1456?
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
All right, action item M has passed. The time is now 7:54 or 7:55. I'll give council a 5-minute break before we move into workshop. Regarding utility rate study, water, sewer, stormwater, and Woodland Municipal Code 13.04 and 13.08 changes. Timeline, capital projects, timeline and costs, debt, insurance, revenue bonds, and set public hearing date. Before we get started this evening, we do have Mr. Martin and Miss Angie on the line with us. Do you have anyone else from the team this evening?
No, Mayor, it's just us two.
Thank you for being with us tonight. No Andy tonight, huh? No shenanigans.
No, Andy.
All right. Before we get started here, I do have some statements I'd like to share with council for their discussion, and then hopefully if there are questions, we can get you folks from FCS on with us here. Let's see, Ms. Coleman, you're also on the line. No, we lost Ms. Coleman. Okay, hopefully she joins us soon.
I'm here.
To ensure that our future infrastructure is being taken care of. So this evening, what we need from you is a decision. on one of these options moving forward. Of course, one of those options is nothing. So one of those options, which I don't think is listed, which is do nothing. I caution you on the do nothing. As much as I myself do not want to pay more in utilities, it's imperative that you understand that these utility rates are connected to so much more than just making sure that our system is functioning properly. We have a 426-acre parcel out in our industrial area that we are currently working on a feasibility study, which we have also spent multiple thousands of dollars on. Without a rate increase, you are stating that you don't want any further business here in town because our current system won't be able to handle the increase in the development that's coming. We have folks that are in here this evening that are developing 31 homes, which will take up more of that capacity on our current system. We have potential for apartment complexes coming into town at this point that we're discussing. We have restaurants that are looking to come into town to develop. And every time that this happens, capacity is taken up off our current system. So it's a little bit bothersome to me that we would say that we're not being business friendly. We're doing this at a time that isn't appropriate, but the fact of the matter is we've been discussing this for a year and a half and we just happen to be in a difficult time. I agree with those statements to a point, but the fact of the matter is if we're going to be business friendly, we need to increase our capacity here at the city. If we do nothing, our water fund will be bankrupt in a certain amount of time, which means that we will have to pull money from our reserve accounts to make sure that the infrastructure is functioning properly. If we're looking to create a future for us, I'm asking you to at least pick one of the options. I'm not telling you which one to pick, that you are the policymakers, but I don't believe that doing nothing is an option anymore. This is our, honestly, and I hate to say it and be so dramatic about it, but our future is at stake here, because if you say no to any of this, there's no point of spending the thousands of dollars that we already have on studies and feasibility to try to get businesses to come in here. In fact, doing nothing is actually going to hurt our business community if we don't do something. So with that, I will turn it over to you, and I hope that out of this discussion this evening that we can move forward and not kick the can down the road. So I will open it up.
I have a question.
Mrs. Holland.
So, just because this has went over like lots of hours and lots of meetings, I think just if somebody could just reiterate for me or just confirm what I think I know. In all the years that I've came and watched the budget cycle happen, what I got out of that is that the way we charge people, so any kind of shortfalls come from the general fund, and our utilities are not sustainable. They do not sustain themselves, if that's correct.
So they currently, so two answers. Number one, utility dollars that come in are dedicated funding to the utility system. Mm-hmm. So we don't skim off the top of those. Anything that is extra goes into a reserve fund to help with capital projects moving forward. The second part of that if there is a shortfall, then yes, we will be pulling out of our general reserves to cover that if it's on our plan. Mr. Boyce.
Well, we would, actually, if we don't have enough in the water fund or sewer fund to cover capital projects, those projects would be delayed because we don't have an adequate reserve to cover both the general fund and utility rate funds. So up to this point, they have been paying their own way. Some time ago when City Council introduced the 7% increases, there were some real concerns about the fund balances and whether or not those funds could sustain themselves. Over the years, because Council took that action, that has allowed the sewer and water funds to get some critical projects done and put together a fund balance that can handle emergency situations when they occur. And they can be big dollar emergency situations when they happen. So today we're in a much better spot than we were several years ago when that 7% started. going. And so it has been paying its way. We're required by the state to put together water and sewer plans. And part of those water and sewer plans are capital infrastructure. For instance, right now, our water reservoir is a big concern. We've had a leak that we haven't been able to fully repair, and it's one of those projects that has to be done right away. The rates on the sewer side look better because those projects are further out down the line. Whereas the water fund, we just completed the plant restoration this year, which was a high dollar item. And
Mr.
now
Boyce,
we're-
real quick, and by high dollar figure, all the electronics we're replacing, it was about $750,000.
Correct.
So it was $750,000, so these aren't small ticket items when we say
Correct.
keeping them going. Go ahead.
Right. And now we're faced with, that water reservoir right away, which, if the leak gets worse, it could be a significant concern. So the capital plans outlined in the water and sewer plan are important. I have seen jurisdictions that defer maintenance, and sometimes it's easy to do out of sight, out of mind. But eventually, that maintenance needs to be done, and hopefully it's not put off until it's an emergency concern or a lot of maintenance has to be done at one time.
Which is kind of what we find with most things here. We're at catastrophic failure level, right? Like the roads. And the pipes shooting sewage up in the middle of the roads and stuff.
And the city has been maintaining the utility systems. There's always the argument, more funds, we get more maintenance done. But we are being proactive. When it comes to stormwater, not so much. We're taking care of issues when they happen, because we don't have a dedicated funding source. It's coming from the road fund. And as you know, council has taken proactive action a couple times to put transportation benefit district before the voters. It was rejected twice by the voters, so we're maintaining roads at the level of funding we have. Our public works director has been outstanding in going out and obtaining grants, which is great, but we're getting to that point where we're running out of matching funds to obtain those grants. So we're maintaining with the road fund as best we can at this point.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump to Ms. Coleman real quick for comment.
There she is.
How do I unmute myself? Imagine that. I didn't know how to unmute myself. Amazing. Can you guys hear me okay?
Always.
Oh, good, okay. So just a couple things. I want to piggyback on what Pete said. Pete pretty much nailed it. He hit the nail on the head. We are required as a city. When I talk about required, I'm talking about from the Department of Health and Department of Ecology and the requirement to our citizens to keep up with the demands of our economic development and our population growth. So that's something you guys want to remember. We're talking about expanding our city, and so we need to keep up with those demands. Those demands are inclusive of increasing pipe size, increasing flow, so on and so forth. And with that, we need to provide the basic infrastructure of water, sewer, and road, people to be able to get around in our city, road maintenance. So those are three things that we need to provide our citizens: clean water, sewer, and roads. So remember those three items. All of those items are what our economy needs in our city, and we need to provide that reliable infrastructure. And so one of the things that we do is you have to remember that all these items benefit all of the residents and all of the businesses. There's nothing here that we're like, if we increase the sewer or if we increase the water or we have a catastrophe with our water or our sewer, it affects all the businesses and it affects all the residents of Woodland. It's not a one-off. So it's also our biggest challenge is because there's a large cost associated with it. And we have very limited funding to be able to pay for this infrastructure. When the infrastructure goes in, the majority of the time, when we have to expand, like we're going to do the feasibility study and we're expanding out, the people who build out in that 400 acres contribute to the new infrastructure. That's part of your initial cost to be able to come into the city. But the kicker is the maintenance, and there are not grant dollars associated for the maintenance of water and sewer systems. Roads, as you know, we've been able to get a couple TID grants, so on and so forth. We've been very fortunate. But that's going to run out and after so much time. You can only get it so many years, and there's other cities that they have to provide those funding mechanisms for regular maintenance, because we're all kind of struggling in the same categories. So, with that being said, you have to remember that the Department of Health's first line of defense is for them to make sure that our citizens are avoiding any threatening or costly, that's in their statement, costly problems. So if we as a city don't recognize, if we as a city choose to not do anything, and we turn around and say, okay, citizens, we aren't going to raise your rates, whatever it is, I'm just talking average number, $5 every billing cycle, then we have a major catastrophe. Now we have to go out and pay 1.5 times the amount, so you're eventually going to have to raise the rate, because you cannot use your reserve, because your reserve affects your borrowing ability. So if for the first time we actually have a little bit of money in our reserves for our water and sewer, what that does is it gives us a better borrowing capacity and financial rating if we ever have to go out and get grant dollars or go for bonding and so on and so forth. So we need to be able to have those reserve dollars sitting there, because they're for emergency situations, major floods, so on and so forth. We have water line breaks, a big road, it gives away and we have a huge pothole and it busts out the water and sewer line. That's what that reserve fund is for. It's not for your maintenance dollars. So just remember that we're required to have a certain amount of reserves for our bond rating. And then if we need to have additional funding where we have to go out for bonding or loans, you can't get that if you have no reserves. You'll look at it as being bankrupt, and I think Pete described it better than I do. So one of the things that you want to remember is there's two ways to pay for things. You raise revenue throughout the city, so how do we collect revenue? Or you borrow money. If you have no reserves, you're not going to borrow money, you're not going to have good rating, and if you are allowed to borrow money, you're going to be at a high borrowing interest rate, and then you're going to have to pay that back. How do you pay it back? You have to increase your sewer and water rates and your road fees. So I'm just saying that we have to really think about, when you decide what to do, what's it going to cost the citizens in the long run, and what is your responsibility as a council to make sure our citizens have the lowest possible dollar out of pocket overall. And that lowest possible dollar is to maintain our infrastructure that we have. It's the money that we're asking for is not to go out and build a 400-acre complex for new investment. The money we're asking for is to maintain our infrastructure of our roads or our water or our sewer lines that are over 50 years old. So, we've skipped by on lining pipes that really should have been replaced. You know that happened about 5 years ago. I think we went out and we lined some of our pipes that were failing. That lining only is going to last so long, and those pipes really should have been replaced. So we're doing a major road project, a full depth reclamation on West Scott Avenue. We're doing that full depth reclamation, and we do not have the funds to be able to upgrade our water and sewer, so we're building a brand new road, and then when those water and sewer fail, we're going to have to tear up a brand new road because we don't have funding to be able to up it at the cheapest possible price while we're doing that full depth reclamation. Those are things that you guys have to think about when you're making your decision. That's pretty much all I have for right now.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. And I'd also like to note, I saw that the fire chief is not on here this evening, but when this discussion was being evaluated during an executive team meeting, the water also, our water capacity also goes towards our fire insurance rating for the city as well, which is also a residential and commercial business. So if we can't provide a water service, proper PSI, I'm assuming, when it comes to potentially putting out a fire, our fire rating insurance rating will go down, which will cost residents more money, which will cost businesses more money. So there is a ripple effect that comes into this, and it's just not, okay, let's go ahead and do this and build a water reservoir. There's a lot of things that have gone into this study, and a lot of things that it will affect based on the decisions that are made by this body. Mr. Plaza.
Okay, I just got a couple of quick questions. One is, I understand that the money for water, sewer, roads, and all that other stuff, doesn't fall off a tree and land in our laps. I know it's got to come from someplace. But I'm a little concerned because 2 years ago, we raised taxes on our citizens for an emergency fund. And we told our citizens that that funding is going to go specifically into a pot, so if there's ever an emergency, we'll have the money to handle it. Emergency came, and last year I asked, well, how much money do we have in the emergency fund? And there was no money in there, because it got spent on non-emergency type situations. So how can I, in good faith, or at least, rest easy knowing that if I vote for another tax increase on citizens who can't afford it, that the money's going to go where it's supposed to go? And two, it seems like we raise our taxes on our citizens almost every year, and we are always promised that it's going to bring more jobs. And while it's brought some, it hasn't brought the amount that I think that people feel that they've been promised. So how do we know another tax increase is going to actually bring the businesses to Woodland that are going to be able to employ the people that live here and provide the funding that they need in order for us to give them the services that they deserve?
So I can speak to two of those points right there.
Okay.
First of all, this isn't a tax increase, it's a rate increase. And it has dedicated funding to the enterprise fund. However way you look at it, we can split hairs with that one.
Right.
And what the account that you're speaking to, we had a major increase in labor costs, and that's where those funds had gone to. So I just want to make it clear on the record that it's not that we skimmed out the top of it and went.
Well, no, I'm not saying
I know.
that,
I'm just saying that for those that are listening.
Right.
We didn't go out and build a new road. We didn't go out and think we had all this money and bought new computer equipment and built a city hall and all that stuff. It went into an account, and labor is our highest cost, and that's where it went. As far as the promise of jobs, I can't really answer that one because it's up to the companies and the businesses to come in and build here. But if we don't have a desirable location with a viable infrastructure, then those jobs aren't going to come anyway.
Do we have anybody on point that are interested in coming here?
At this point, yes. We have, out in that industrial area, we have a couple of developments that are going now, or in the process of going. One is the Carpenito Brothers, which I cannot remember off the top of my head how many jobs that they're bringing in. I want to say it's 300? I was going to say 6, I was going to double it, so it's about 300 or so. And then the one across the street from there on Caples, there's another development going in right there. So, what's that? Riley, yes, how many jobs is that?
I want to say that was 26, if I remember correctly.
And I contribute that to, number one, the fact that we are doing a feasibility study out there and trying to find out where the infrastructure is going to go. But number two, also Mr. Goddard's Office of Customer Service and providing an opportunity to sit down and speak to these folks to woo them in here. The same thing when we talk about the housing. So we're talking about jobs. Housing is also going to bring some jobs, but it's also going to bring new residents to fill the jobs that are actually coming. So it's a balancing act of finding housing for those that want to work here. So I think we're getting there. I think with government, though, things move slowly. So, but I'm not trying to discount your comments. I'm just trying to throw the information out there.
No, I'm with you.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Rounds.
I know we've been working on this a year and a half. We didn't foresee COVID-19 coming into effect either. with the businesses and the people that have been laid off. It's really a hard time right now to implement this. I'm not saying I'm not for it down the road maybe, but right now with Inslee, the way he has hurt the businesses, it's really tough to look forward right now with this. And, granted, we've been working on it a year and a half, but we didn't know this was going to happen. We didn't know Inslee was going to shut down the businesses for a while and then bring them back, have capacity and having to do more with less with what they got. We don't want to run our businesses out of business by raising the rates right now. I'm not against it down the road maybe, but I just don't see how we can force it on our businesses right now, or the people that are laid off.
Fair enough. Okay. Mr. Fredericks?
Follow-up question to the question that was raised by the, quote, emergency fund. We're talking about the 301 General Reserve Fund, is that right?
I'm not exactly sure what.
So the General Reserve Fund would be any additional monies that are out of balance on the budget. So if the budget is required to balance, but if there's additional income, that money flows to the General Reserve. It'd be like, an example would be if you had $5,000 going into your checking account, but you had $4,000 in expenses, $1,000 would automatically go to your savings. That's the same thing that we had here for the city. Now, we have to understand when we pass that, yes, it does raise additional revenue, but then at the same time, we approve contracts for city employees, all coming before this body that we end up having a choice to either approve or not. We end up doing it, and that money has got to come from somewhere. And we end up taking it out of the General Reserve Fund to cover those lump payouts because you have contract negotiations that have been going on for 2-3 years that we're now required to pay well over $100,000 in payment to go back, and we're right back in the middle of negotiating. We just settled one of those, and now we're right back in it again. So that General Reserve Fund, had we not done that, we would be pulling further into that fund, and then when we have that rainy day, which will come, it always does, we need to be in a better position to be able to weather that storm. And so I think that that's an important thing to discuss, is that we've all approved those contracts that have come before us, and there's a cost associated with those contracts. It's not, oh, we'll just find it somewhere else in the budget. It doesn't work that way. And for years, we've taken money out of the General Reserve Fund to fund a Parks Department that is woefully understaffed, and we've continued to do that for a long time. And so I think we need to just understand that if there's not an understanding, just have an understanding of we approve things and there's a cost associated with that.
Mr. Boyce?
And I should say that the fund balances as of last year remained stable. So we're not, we've taken action to reduce expenditures even in light of some of those labor increases, to keep things stable. It gets harder and harder to do every year, but for the 2020 budget, we were keeping those fund balances in the target area. It's still in a situation where we need to increase our fund balance to be comfortable, but we're keeping things stable at this point.
And our financial policies and procedures indicate that we should have, 6 months of operating reserve in the General Reserve Fund?
It's less than 6 months.
Is it less than 6?
I want to say it's 3 months.
Okay.
And we're not at that 3-month mark.
So policies and procedures that have been passed by a majority of this body are currently not being followed because we're not there yet.
Right. We're attempting to build to that.
Yep. Mr. Smith?
I got a question for, speaking of employment. I'm going to try to put you on the spot here, Ms. Coleman.
Oh, Ms. Coleman.
Let me try to phrase this the right way here. I think everybody on the council agrees that Ms. Coleman does a good job and really appreciates everything she does. And I know with me being here for the last year, I can see the amount of work she does and the amount of money she brings in as far as grants and trying to get them and really try to help this city. If this doesn't pass, Ms. Coleman, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Is this a city that you would like to continue to work for? It seems like your job is going to be very difficult in trying to keep this city going with the revenue source that you currently have.
Yeah, you really did put me on the spot there. I don't know if I like that question. So is the city somebody that I want to work for? When it comes to the individuals in the city and the citizens, absolutely 100% without a doubt. When it comes to the ability to get anything done, it's not the preferred city to work for. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to work for the city, so don't anybody, worry about that. My only concern is you pay me to do a job. If you don't have any funds, you're better off not paying me and using those funds to fix your system. Because there's no reason for me to be here if I can't get projects done for you. You have to maintain your system. If you don't have the money to maintain your system, you shouldn't be paying money for management to sit here and not do anything. And I'm not saying I'm not doing anything, and I'm not saying I won't do anything. But if I can't go out for grant dollars because there's no funds to be able to match, where does that put me? And I hate to say it, but I'm not a shopper, but I like to spend money to get things done. So even though, I'm not a person who goes out and has the fanciest pair of shoes, I sure as heck want a nice sewer system or clean drinking water, and I don't want to drive down the road and hit a pothole. So you asked me that question. I have expressed frustration at my department head meetings. Probably I should keep my mouth shut at times, but I am here for the citizens, and the citizens, we need to figure out a way to communicate to them. And one of the analogies that I used is, when we're talking about raising the rates, we're not talking huge dollars. We're talking $5 a billing cycle, or $10 a billing cycle. And I made the comment that you just have to not upsize your Big Mac meal one time a month to cover that cost. So we're not talking large dollars. We're not talking hundreds of dollars a month. We're talking very low costs. But if you don't do it now at the low cost to be able to fix these and maintain your facilities, you sure as heck are going to be paying a larger cost, which you are going to be looking at $20 or $30 a billing cycle, especially when your system fails, because you're paying 1.5 times the amount. So again, to answer the question, absolutely do I want to work for this city, because of the people that I work with and because of the citizens. That I get a great amount of support from the citizens. And I love the council members and my bosses. I have great bosses, and I actually even like Travis, even though he's a Democrat, but we'll leave it at that.
Whoa, Miss Coleman. Easy.
But anyway, so it is very frustrating to be able to get items done at the city. So hopefully I've answered that question for you.
Ooh, a little bit too much information, but thank you. Yes, Miss Coleman. Thank you, Miss Coleman.
Mr. Mayor.
By the way, that's an in-house joke between Travis and I. So just so everybody knows, on the record, that's an internal joke.
Mrs. Rounds.
It's not just $5 a month that I see. In 5 years, it's almost doubling.
It's a progressive
Yes, it's
increase.
progressive. So it's almost doubling their water bill for businesses and individuals from what it is right now.
Yeah.
If it was $5 a month, I'd jump on it. But it doesn't stay at that. It's progressive, and I'm, any other time, I probably would still jump on it. But it's a tough time right now to try to force this on our businesses and individuals.
Mr. Goddard.
So I was going to bring up some issues that would support the Public Works position, but I'm not sure I'm willing to do that anymore. Unless you can pull the knife out of my back there, I would. So, as the city planner, part of my job is to go through the data that is produced in the city or produced for the city and to help you understand the implications of why this data is important. And just last month, we had the presentation from the Woodland Industrial Site Study and the transportation data that came, and after I saw that presentation, I really appreciated the information that they gathered, and we actually had an internal staff meeting with the mayor and the city administrator to talk about it. And one of those sections was, well, the reason why we had that meeting is to make sure that we start using this data, collecting it and producing it. Sitting on the shelf doesn't do us any good. We need to incorporate that. And one of the things that is in there, and I just happen to have a copy of it with me today, is the employment trends. And so I actually can answer that question with very specific answers because this data was analyzed through 2005 through 2015, so it is a little bit dated, but I wanted to let you know how well the city of Woodland is doing historically, and because that covers the time where we have been doing the consistent 7% across the board without question annually, I think it's important for you to know how well that is translating into the economy and the jobs here. That the city of Woodland has gone, they've been averaging a growth of 3.9% per year in construction. 4.2% per year in construction. Manufacturing has grown at 4.5% per year. Wholesale trade grew at 5.2% per year. Transportation and warehousing grew at 3.5%. And that its position in the county is actually accelerating, meaning that as the rest of Cowlitz County has been stagnant, the city of Woodland, its growth in the jobs sector, both in the number of jobs and the value of the wages that are produced in the city of Woodland, are actually raising all the boats in Cowlitz County because the city of Woodland is doing well. So I can't tell you anything more about the correlation between the raises and whether the 7% has caused some of that improvement, but to answer your question, there is data that shows that the city is being very successful at expanding that job base, which is what your main desire was.
Awesome, thank you. Just to be clear, I didn't mean to imply that you guys were slacking on the job. Because no way did I mean that, because, well, compared to the last administration, I mean, you guys have set this place on fire.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys are busting butt and doing a great job.
In a good way.
Yes, in a good way.
Don't mind the smoke outside right now. That's not us. That's not us.
In a good way. But, you know, the concern always is that, you know, whenever there's a problem, let's just raise taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, a lot of the concerns that I've heard from some people are, you know, well, where's the money going, because I'm not seeing new jobs or anything like that. So that's just, I wanted to see, you know, what the road was to get us to where these are being more visible, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So that's also,
Yeah.
But thanks for the info.
Yeah. And the other thing also have to be fair in saying, I don't know what numbers are behind that, so I can say 4.5%. That may be 2 jobs, it may be 50 jobs.
Let's go with 50.
Yeah, so.
Just if I may, I think it's, if you reduce federal regulations and if you reduce the federal tax that corporations are required to pay, this is a direct reflection of what happens on a federal level when you implement these types of policies. These numbers increase. I think it has very little to do with what Woodlands has done, but I think it has a lot to do with what is currently being done at the federal level.
Well done.
Easy, Mr. Goddard, easy with your...
I'm only giving you the stink eye because I would like to point out that it was a Democratic president who was in office the majority of the time between 2005, 2015, so.
The previous administration blamed the prior administration, which they did for all their ill will. Certainly, we can do the same.
Walk away, Mr. Goddard. Mr. Goddard, walk away.
There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard.
I have another question, if...
It's
I'm
getting
not-
really hot in here, yes.
If I'm not hogging the show. Pete, can you put the slide back on the thing it was on? You know, the thing. Okay. So I have a question real quick.
Just real quick, Martin and Angie and Tracy, what's being shown on screen is the utility rate adjustment options. So the options 1, 2, and 3 is what Mr. Plaza is referring to.
So several times, well, numerous times during the previous times that this has been brought to us and, you know, we've been taught about it, we've been told that, you know, everybody's got to pay their fair share. And it's important that the people using more water that are in a higher income bracket get charged more because they have to pay their fair share. So, and I brought up the fact that most low-income apartments and homes are subsidized or are rented out, and the landlord is the one that pays utilities and sewer and all that kind of stuff, not the person renting the place. So how is giving a landlord a 25% discount on their bill, whereas everybody else has to pay 25% more, that person paying his fair share? Anybody?
Martin.
Martin Shaw.
Go ahead, Martin.
Yes, Mayor. So, Councilmember Plaza, the 25% discount doesn't apply to a landlord. It applies to the rate payer that qualifies, that income qualifies for your program. So, in other words, that the homeowner that qualifies for that would need to meet income or disability requirements per your city code.
I've never met a low-income homeowner, though, is the question I've got.
Come to my neighborhood, because those people all own their homes, but they're getting Social Security. So $700 and some odd a month doesn't go very far. So that kind of stuff would really help them, because they also qualify for paying lower property taxes through the county because of their income.
So they're able to pay mortgage and just survive off of $725 a month?
My neighborhood was built in 1972, so most of my neighbors that are still alive were the original owners. And so now they're all retired and in their 70s, and so if you only get like $700 and some odd because your spouse died who had the pension, you get to pay lower property taxes through the county because you're low income.
Okay.
You qualify for food stamps because you're low income, but something like this, 25% less on their utility bill when they have a dead yard just like the rest of us, but I mean, it would help.
Okay, so just to put my mind at ease then, so owners that own, you know, apartment complexes or whatever and rent their apartments out to low-income people, they're not getting the 25% discount, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fredericks.
So, back in 2008, when I first got on council, we were given the choice to either approve rate increases or the fund itself was going to be bankrupt. And at the time, I can remember feeling rather frustrated that the previous council put us in that position. I did not like it. It was just a failure to plan. And here we've paid for the plan, and I don't like rate adjustments either. I would rather not. But the fact of the matter is, we absolutely can kick the can down the road, which is option 4 on here, do nothing, and leave it to the next council to deal with. But I can't support that. I have a real issue with residential subsidizing business, which is currently happening under the current rate structure. I don't support that, and I would like that's part of this change. I hear this, you're not business friendly if you pass something like this. We keep being told, well, if you just bring in jobs, if you just create the policies to bring in jobs, it'll reduce the taxes for everybody else. And I agree, but they got to be able to flush the toilet, and they got to be able to take a drink of water. And I think that that's important. We definitely have ongoing capacity issues that are going to be real issues that need to be addressed. And how have we typically dealt? We are a knee-jerk reaction. Typically, the past has been a knee-jerk reaction. We wait if there's an emergency, and we pay the money. And if we choose to do nothing, these costs don't get cheaper because we're printing money federally like nobody's business, which is going to eventually dilute or make your dollar worth less than what it is today, which means you're going to end up paying more to fund the infrastructure changes that need to happen. So it makes no sense in my mind to put it off. This is for a fund that is a monopoly fund, which means we cannot take any money out of this fund and do anything else with it. But the ratepayers have a responsibility to pay for the system. And we have 400 acres out in the industrial zone too that I'd like to see developed. We're going to need to address capacity for those additional acres. So from my standpoint, I agree with Councilmember Rounds. I do not believe this is something that should be done immediately. I would like to see these rates effective in February, which means the ratepayer would not pay them until April. I am supportive of option 3 for the water. I am supportive of option 3 for the sewer, and I'm supportive of option 2 in the stormwater utility. Because I think it's important, if you look at the list of street projects that can be funded if the stormwater utility is formed, there is a ton of stuff on that list. And this goes back to multiple public works directors prior. I've lost track. We've had way too many people in there in that position, in Ms. Coleman's position. I think 2 or 3 ago we were told that just to keep up, we need $500,000 for street repairs, and I can't even remember the number of miles of streets that needed to be repaired. We are woefully underfunded in our street repairs, which is why we've tried a couple of times, and maybe we've done not a very good job of taking the Transportation Benefit District out to the folks, because that money has got to come from somewhere. So that's what I'm supportive of. I hope the council moves forward with those options. I think we have a responsibility to do that. We have a responsibility to the next generation of council members coming through that are going to take the baton off. We need to set that group up for success, and we need to ensure that we're putting the city of Woodland on the right path for the future. And that's our responsibility, even though I understand and I can appreciate the concerns of Councilmember Plaza, Councilmember Rounds, and I'm also, concerned about the people that can't pay for the what do you call it, an extra value meal at McDonald's. There are people in our community that don't have money for that, and I recognize by us taking this action that we are creating a challenge for the folks in this community that cannot afford that increase. And so having said that, the last thing that I will say, I'm also supportive of moving to monthly billing. I think monthly billing is a great way to help families budget, and I think it's important that we move forward with that. But that's all I've got.
Can I ask a question?
Mrs. Holland.
So multiple times, and I've never seen this actually in written form, but multiple times I've heard that residents are offsetting the cost of businesses. So do they pay different rates? Or what does that mean? Because I've heard it said a couple times, so I just wonder what that means.
Ms. Coleman, did you hear the question? Multiple times, Ms. Holland is bringing up that business owners are paying a different rate than residential owners, and what is the breakdown kind of, or explain the process behind that? Is there a different rate for commercial versus residential? Is it based on, I'm just going back to my memory now, is it based on pipe size or things like that?
I'm going to let Martin address that because he can address how that works. Basically, it's based on water usage.
Okay.
People who use more water pay a higher rate, but I'll let Martin address that.
Okay. Martin?
Yes. So your current rate structure has two parts to the charge. The first part is a fixed bi-monthly charge, and that charge is based upon the size of a account holder's meter. So the larger the meter, the greater the charge you receive. And for that charge, the billing is the same, regardless of whether you're residential or commercial. So that's the first half of the charge. The second half of the charge is what's called a volumetric rate. So that is a charge that is assessed for water use. So right now your charge is $2.96 or 2.96 cents per CCF of water used. And that charge is right now the same whether you're single family or commercial. Now, in the revised structure, the recommendation that we have for you, the fixed monthly charge that stays the same between commercial and residential, but the volumetric charge is a little bit different. The commercial folks, their charge will stay as what's called a single block rate. So they pay one fee regardless of how much water they use. And then the single family residential class, we're proposing that they move to a 4-block structure. So under that structure, folks who are using a small amount of water, or the smallest amount of water, would receive the lowest charge, and then as account holders use more water, their charge would go up.
So we'd actually be billed for what we use and not averaged by what we did a year ago?
No, how much you get charged would be dependent on how much you use.
So, yes.
So, for example, just to use stupid numbers, let's say you get charged $5 a month for 5 gallons of water, right? I use 50 gallons of water, but I don't get charged, $5 per gallon because I'm using so much water. I'm getting charged $30 per gallon. So it's an incremental deal for how much water you use in a weak analogy, but it gets the point across.
Martin, would you agree with that? You're being charged for what you use.
That's right. That's correct.
And we're currently not doing that. We kind of are, but in a weird way.
But it's not a flat rate.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
But this way, everybody would kind of have an idea. Let's say you have timed sprinklers, and you're two people who live alone with each other, and you have timed sprinklers, and so theoretically, your bills should be the same all the time, right? Instead of this loop-de-loo of, lo and behold, I have a dead yard, and now I've got double the amount of water usage that I did that same time the year before, because why not? Is that right? I mean, I'm just trying to make this...
Hypothetically.
I'm just trying to have a reason to sell this to people when they get mad.
Gotcha.
When you tell them that they can, that it would actually be what they're being charged. They're being charged what they're actually using, as opposed to some random number that gets picked out of the air, and that's what they get charged.
Would the averaging, and I guess I should probably know the answer to this, but I can't remember, does the averaging go away that we're currently doing? Does that system currently go away? Like in the summertime? There was the process, is it the averaging that happens in the summertime? Yeah. Does that whole process goes away and we just go to strictly what we're using on a monthly basis?
Not quite, Mayor.
Okay.
The averaging does, the averaging over the summer does go away, but what, for the sewer utility, that averaging would be year-round instead.
Okay.
So one of the key comments that we heard from your citizens was the way the city does the averaging, which is only for the summer months, but for the winter months is based upon actual usage. And they saw their sewer billings vary a bit because of that. And one of the things that your staff has asked us to do is to try to eliminate that and to move to what's called year-round averaging, or year-round winter average. And that's what we're proposing for your sewer utility, and that should eliminate many of the complaints that your billing staff has received.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And then also, it should be noted too that that 7% increase that occurs every year goes away. This is the new system, that goes away, so I don't want anyone to think that that we're going to continue with the 7% increase every year. This is the new program, whatever program that is, that whether it be nothing or one of the options that are sat there. That's, I mean, if you do nothing, I think the 7% would probably still need to be.
There will be
Placed.
rate increase.
Yes.
Rate increases based upon the plan that was put forth. There will be rate adjustments that will need to take place and be part of the budget process annually.
Right, and currently, we have a resolution or an ordinance in place that allows for a 7% increase in both water and sewer automatically, unless city council takes action to change that. But, yeah, things go up in cost, we have to determine what capital projects we do or don't do.
So that's the 7%, not the one that's used to fund the fire department, correct?
It's not the public utility tax, it's a 7%.
The one that just happens every year,
Basically, it increases the sewer and water rates by 7% annually at this point.
Okay.
Public utility tax is separate.
Okay.
Well, I'll just go out here real quick. Just
Mr.
so I can get
Plaza?
off my chest.
Don't hold back.
Don't hold back, please.
Yeah. I am really having a hard time wrapping my head around why, if we're charging, for example, $2 a gallon for water at the low end, why somebody who, for whatever reason they may have, ends up using more, ends up paying double, if not triple, what everybody else pays. I mean, I got the theory behind it in the, the packets that we got, but maybe it's just me. It just doesn't seem right to kick somebody in the knees just because they use more water. They're already paying more, because of the amount of water they're using. Why stack another fee or a higher price increase on top of that? I mean, it should be one cost across the board. I mean, I know that's not part of the program, and it's not what we're voting on, but I just think it's dumb.
We can vote on anything you want.
Mayor. Yes, Mr. Smith.
Coleman's got it.
Oh, Coleman. Yes, Coleman.
I'd like Martin to address that comment because I don't believe that comment is true. They're paying double or triple the amount of everybody else. They're paying it based on their usage. Could you address that, Martin, his concern?
Sure. So, Councilman, that's a good question. With moving to a 4-block rate, in the industry that's called an inclining block rate. So as someone uses more water, they get pushed up into a higher block, and those higher blocks come with a higher charge. And the way those tiers are set, Councilman, is there is a bit of science behind that. And how we set that is we look at how your consumers use water over the course of the year. And for the fourth block, the highest block, that break point or that tier is set at what's called your summer peak. So during the summer, at the highest point where people are using water mainly for outdoor irrigation purposes, keeping the lawns green, watering the garden, etc. That block is intended to capture that level or that range of use, and primarily that kicks in during the summer. And then for block 3, that's set at what's called your year-round average. So over the course of the 12 months, what's the average use for that year? And then block 2 is set at what we term as the overall average for your single-family folks. So in other words, that is the level of usage that the majority of your customers use for water. And that's for basic indoor use, cooking, for the bathroom, etc. With probably just a little bit of outdoor usage. And then the first block is intended to capture what you just described, or what you as a council just described is, for those folks who are on limited income, they're only a 2-person household, maybe a 1-person household, and they use very little water. And that block is intended to try to capture folks who who do not use very much water, and therefore will receive the smallest increase in their expected billing.
If I may add just a little bit, Martin, as well. So the concept of that particular rate design is that, it's really trying to send a price signal. So many times when you use much more water, again, for lawn watering during peak summertime time constraints, that does cause capital infrastructure costs, because Ms. Coleman now has to make sure that she's meeting the peak day requirements of everybody who wants to water their lawn, or, build a pool, or do a number of different things. And so we have to oversize our system. We have to invest in our system in order to meet our peak day requirements, which has a cost to it. And so the more that we can get people thinking about how they're using water and what they're using water on, the current infrastructure that we have can last a bit longer, and we don't have to make those costly infrastructure investments as soon maybe as we would normally need to if we weren't trying to just get people thinking about really how they're using water and what level of water that they're using. And so again, just being a little bit more conscious about it does help us save costs in the long term. Again, trying to send that price signal that peaking time period does cost more, because unfortunately, when we have these high peak day events, we do have to invest in additional infrastructure to meet those particular requirements.
So there isn't a legitimate function behind it, it's just for behavior modification then? Or am I not understanding correctly?
You're not fully understanding that. Let Angie and Martin talk on it.
Stand down, Angie, we got it. Go ahead, Coleman.
No, I'm going to let Angie.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to let Angie respond to that. I have another comment. I'm going to just say a quick comment on and piggyback on what Angie said when she's talking about peak demand. As you guys are aware right now, we are in need of an additional water reservoir. And when we talk about keeping our rate structure where it's at, or even not doing anything with it at all, we are not going to be able to build that water reservoir. We have to go out for a loan for it. It's hard to obtain loans on it. I've already tried once. I will try again. But that is something that we're struggling in right now, is our water demand. And I will tell you that when our SCADA system goes down because of communication with Comcast, when we have our system go down and we have that high use during the summer, we cannot take our water offline. We're producing water 24 hours a day. So that's something you have to think about when you're saying, well, you don't want to go to the fact where you tell people that you cannot use your water because now we have to reserve the water because we can't produce it enough. We can't produce enough water. And we're getting to that point in our water system. So that's something that we want to make sure that we don't have to tell people, you cannot water your lawn. You can only use water during this, do restrictive water usage, especially when we're trying to expand the city. But now I'll let Angie, you talk about what he was saying in regards to trying to create a behavior.
And she muted herself just in time. Perfect.
There's definitely a cost basis for it. So within the water industry, it's called the cost of service, and that is what we completed as part of the rate study process. And it does actually break down your costs into what are the cost drivers of all of your expenses. Are they there to meet fire flow requirements? Are they there to meet just total average? There to meet peak costs? Are they there to meet customer costs? And so there is a industry standard methodology that is out there that we actually break down all of your costs, and it helps us identify and formulate how we should be collecting those particular costs. What should be in a fixed charge versus what should be in a variable charge. And as Martin had talked about, that variable charge for your particular utility in terms of what our overall goals we're trying to accomplish when we started the study is to have an inverted block rate structure. So a tiered rate structure that the more you use, the more you pay. But we're not trying to collect more revenue than if you just had a flat rate. It's just helping us really try to align the cost drivers with how we're pricing things. Is it trying to change behavior? Absolutely. So could you have changed the 2.0 to the 1.0? There is a range of reasonableness that you have within developing those rate structures, but in general, there is an industry standard methodology that is behind those cost breakdowns.
And I don't know that I would call it behavior modification, but what I'm gathering from this is that if we either plan for a massive amount of production, or we try to limit that so we're not investing tons of money into infrastructure that we don't need. Is that simple?
Yep.
Okay.
You're trying to get your infrastructure to last as long as you possibly can.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. With a little bit of behavior modification.
So you don't have to oversize it sooner than you need to.
Yeah. we don't need a Costco if we can get away with a Safeway, right? Yeah, okay.
So I think we're all okay with a stormwater district, right? I kind of think that we get the most bang for our buck there, and then Ms. Coleman can achieve a lot of things on her to-do list. And we don't have one. So is that something, so Councilmember Fredericks had mentioned starting this in, April?
February 16th.
Right.
It'd be February 16th based on one council member's
I've suggested
suggestion.
The rates start in February. The
So then
first
it's-
billing notice would either be, depending on if we move to monthly or not, it would be either March or April.
So I'm thinking, if I remember correctly, didn't federally, they just do some payroll thing where you get, less payroll taxes will be coming out,
For Social Security.
but in April, you're gonna have to pay it back. Yes, so this would happen right about the time that people thought they had free money for several months, and now they're gonna have to.
Most businesses are opting out of that because they don't have the ability to just not pay Social Security tax. So the recommendation was made to look at it potentially, but there's been nothing after the fact. So the president made an executive order and asking that the Treasury look at it, but it's never really gone anywhere from there. So I know our corporation is not doing anything because there hasn't been any guidance.
Yeah, my payroll service hasn't asked anything,
Yeah.
so.
I just don't think people are going to want to pay that back. come
Right.
April.
Is any further discussion? There's been one suggestion thrown out for option 3 for water, option 3 for sewer, and option 2 for stormwater with potential monthly billing. and February 16th start date. Is there any other suggestions on the floor that we should be considering? Mrs. Graham.
I'm sorry.
Mrs. Graham.
Yeah. I didn't see your name was raised.
Oh, well, it was kind of a I'm sitting here contemplating all this. You know, I listen to everybody, and I'm in a whole other, maybe different category than what everybody, you know, you're running businesses and you know, being retired, and I do have an income coming in, and it's a fairly decent income, but I have just now this past week downsized a lot of things, just getting rid of it because I didn't feel it was necessary. And some of the best things I've done is going to monthly payments. I like the whole idea of a monthly payment myself. And I pretty much agree with, I like Ben's options and, you know, what we're looking at, and I think it's pretty good. And I understand where Carol's coming from. You know, this is kind of a rough time for a lot of people. But in the long run, you know, in a time frame like for what Ben has said too, you know, it's giving people, you're going to get notice and you're going to be prepared that this is going to happen and these changes are coming along. And if you don't start pretty soon in doing something, because we know it's going to have to happen, if you don't have decent water, and we all know we like our showers, we like to wash our clothes, and heaven help us, we all like to flush our toilets. I can deal with the brown grass, that's not a problem, but if we don't do something that's updated and modernized, technology's coming in, you aren't going to get these businesses to come in and to me it would be, I was thinking if I was a business person coming in wanting to build something, I'm going to look at and see, well, what does this city have for us? And say, oh, the city's got good water, got good sewer service, got whatever else our roads, you know, it's all modern, it's going to be good for a while. I can put my money into it and invest in it and bring new jobs to this community. So, and make it environmentally adequate for everything. You've got to understand where I've come through with this city for a long, long time. One of my husband's favorite thing was to go to the sewer treatment plant and see, making sure our water was clean and everything was functioning and what was going to have to come at that time. I mean, that might be kind of weird, but he found a great pleasure in providing decent systems for our community, and so for me, it's very important to continue with that. And if you put it off, it's just going to cost more money and more money further on down the road. So we just have to make adjustments in what we have for income, and I know it's going to be tight for a lot of people. But they would probably like to flush their toilets and drink the water and drive on the roads too. And if they don't like it, don't complain, because you wouldn't let us raise the rates or do anything about it when we could. So I want to go home and know that I have my water and my facilities functioning. I can go without a lot of other things. I'd have to pay more for it. I just think it's important. Very important.
Mr. Plaza?
Good. Tracy.
Oh, Ms. Coleman?
May I ask what what's been brought up to council. I know you were writing it down, what people have recommended at this time, what they've kind of brought up and supported at this time, what options there were again.
The one suggestion has been put on the floor, which seems, or two options.
Yeah.
What was the second?
The same.
Oh, the same. Oh, I'm sorry. And I think Ms. Holland was in consensus with the suggestion as well. So we've got three signing off right now, or suggesting that option 3 for water, option 3 for sewer, option 2 for stormwater, and for us to consider monthly billing as an option as well, and to look for a deployment process, it sounds like, potentially on that. Okay. Mr. Plaza, before Ms. Grimm.
I totally forgot what I was going to say, so kind of been too important.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mr. Smith?
So to add on to, people prior to us spent money to build what we have today. And I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we are fully supplying our future generations the ability that we have now, and to keep going.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Plaza? Oh, I thought you said you remembered.
Oh, I did remember, but I changed my mind. I don't.
Okay.
Don't want to waste.
That's probably good. That's probably good. That's probably good. It's like a ninja over there. You never know what's going to happen. Very quick.
Be on your toes.
Any other comments before we move out of workshop? Mrs. Holland?
An addendum? There
Okay.
you go. An addendum. The stormwater thing, like, I would do immediately. Like, that would be my opinion.
Okay.
And I think that's just coming from Public Works Committee meetings, where we hear quite often what needs fixed and that there's no money there. So that's an easy one, I think.
So that one, just so you're aware, it looks like we would be able to start that if that were the case for action item P. I believe with Ms. Ripp, it would be December 16th would be the start of that. So it'd be one billing cycle prior. In order for us to get everything done, it would be one billing cycle prior to the February 16th. So
And I think that one's an easy one people understand.
Okay.
The rest of it, I think, then it gives you time to kind of acclimate people to what's coming, so they have a little time to digest it. But the road thing, everybody drives on the same crappy roads here, so I think that's an easy one that they could get behind.
Okay.
Okay, I just have one more suggestion.
Mr. Plaza. Mr. Plaza.
I'll be done. Since we're able to kind of like push this off, and a lot of people are going to see it as a kick in the teeth, what about either we push this back not to begin until February, or until this whole COVID fiasco is over and done with and people are back to work and businesses are open as normal, whichever comes latest.
It'll be February.
Yeah,
It's never going to be over.
Yeah. That would be my suggestion. If we're going to shove this down people's throats, let's at least let them have the opportunity for them to get back to work.
Okay.
So what we're doing here is after the workshop, then you want direction, and then it goes to what?
So the direction that we're going to get, so yeah, let's talk about that. So coming out of workshop, we've got action item N, O, P, and Q. In order for us to create a timeline for the process, we need, number one, your option of what we're planning to do as policymakers to move forward, and then I can insert the dates into there so we can notify public and get and have enough time to prepare documentation to bring it back for council for a first and final reading. So we would need some help with that.
We're not at a workshop though yet, right?
We're not at a workshop yet. No. I'm just saying that the process of I forgot the question because I started rambling, but I think what you were asking is what's the next steps in this?
Right.
The next steps is if we don't do this tonight, if we don't get an option tonight for staff to prepare the documentation, we're going to be delayed further. which pushes it into more delays.
So could we theoretically jump to after workshop, jump to R so these gentlemen can hear what they need to hear and go home? And then we can go back to whatever. So,
Make a motion to change the order of business.
well,
when we get out, you-
because this, we could be continuing to workshop for another 45 minutes, and so I just thought it would be.
Hopefully not.
I thought we were wrapping it up.
We're done.
Are we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
unless you want to continue. I got all sorts of stuff.
Hey, we have power and it's not too smoky in here, so
Yeah,
we could go
right.
all night.
So what's needed tonight is we need to know option, and then the dates that are on here of 9/21 can be, if the February 16th is the date of start, that 9/21 will change to November 16th. So I'm over here taking notes and coordinating with Mrs. Ripp here to make sure that dates are in there.
The effective date is not 2/1, it would be 2/15.
2/16 would be the effective date with the start of the new rate. But for our purposes, for administration purposes, the date on here on 9/21 would actually be November 16th of 2020 on the action items that are here. If council wants to set the stormwater early, it's possible to implement that. It would be the billing cycle of December 16th. So just so you're aware, if the motion comes out that way, with the public hearing, I will have that before we get to it. The public hearing date. Yes.
See that done sooner like this, help out with the, set the budget coming for next year.
Yes, and then there's the budget, yes.
Help out, figure out the budget, so this drags out any longer, it's just gonna make this more effective.
Yeah, well, it's difficult for Ms. Coleman's budget planning purposes as well. So this absolutely helps her with the budget as well, especially when you give a start date of when this would happen if you choose to do that.
Are we done?
I'm looking around the room. I believe we are. All right, the time is 9:19. We are out of workshop. Moving on to action item N. Direct staff to prepare ordinance number 1466, water rate increases with option blank, and set for public hearing and first reading on, I'm going to say blank on that as well, depending on if there's a motion on the floor.
Move to direct staff to prepare ordinance number 1466, water rate increase with option 3, and set for public hearing and first reading on November 16th, 2020, with an effective date of February 16th, 2021.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Fredericks.
Yes, this directs staff to prepare, and we will go to a public hearing, so there will be further testimony that will be provided on this before it actually goes into effect.
Mr. Smith.
No comment.
Further discussion. Seeing none, Mr. Boyce, will you please take the roll on water rate increases with option 3 and set for public hearing, first reading on November 16th for rate increases beginning to go into effect on February 16th of 2021.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
No.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Nope.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
All right, action item N has passed, 5 yeses and 2 nos. Moving on to action item O, direct staff to prepare ordinance number 1467, sewer rate increases with option to be inserted and set for public hearing and first reading on to also be inserted.
Move to direct staff to prepare ordinance number 1467, sewer rate increases with option 3, and set for public hearing with the first reading on November 16th, 2020, with an effective date of increase on February 16th of 2021.
And second that.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks and seconded by Councilmember Graham. Councilmember Fredericks.
I have no discussion.
Councilmember Graham.
I have no further discussion on it either.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Boyce, will you please take the roll on action item O, direct staff to prepare ordinance number 1467, sewer rate increases with option number 3, and set for public hearing and first reading on November 16, 2020, with rates to be put into effect February 16, 2021.
Councilmember Rounds.
No.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
No.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
All right, action item O has passed 5-2. Moving on to action item P, direct staff to prepare ordinance number 1468, stormwater utility formation and rates with option to be inserted, and set for public hearing and first reading on to be inserted.
I move to direct staff to prepare ordinance number 1468, stormwater utility formation and rates with option 2, and set for public hearing and first reading on November 16th, 2020, with an effective date of increase February 16th of 2021.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
I've already discussed all this. I'm good.
Councilmember Chapman.
Yeah, we discussed it.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Boyce, will you please take the roll on action item P to direct staff to prepare ordinance number 1468, stormwater utility formation rates with option number 2, and set for public hearing and first reading on November 16, 2021, for stormwater to be in effect beginning on February 16th of 2021.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Nope.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
No.
Action item P has passed 5-2. Moving on to action item Q. Direct staff to prepare ordinance number 1469, amending the Woodland Municipal Code 13.04 water and Woodland Municipal Code 13.08 sewer, and set for first reading on November 16th, 2020.
Move to direct staff to prepare ordinance number 1469, amending Woodland Municipal Code 13.04 water and 13.08 sewer, and set for the first reading on November 16th of 2020.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
I have no discussion on this item, but I am requesting an additional motion to be brought up regarding the same stuff that we talked about in the workshop. Just put it in, so I have a motion after this that I'd like to ask for pertaining to what we just talked about in the workshop.
Okay. I think I'm tracking.
I just want to make a motion.
All right, Councilmember Chapman.
No discussion.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Boyce, will you please take the roll on action item Q with a first reading on November 16, 2020?
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham. Aye. Councilmember Plaza.
Nope.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
No.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Action item Q has passed 5-2.
So I guess what I'm after, and I'm not sure how we address this, but I'd like to have the city staff. So I move to have the city staff prepare moving to monthly billing with a review of the additional staff required to move to monthly billing, and also looking at outsourcing billing altogether, and provide that to the council for consideration on 11/16/2020.
Okay. QRS, this will be action, would this be a action item S then?
Q.1.
Q.1, okay, well, that's what I was, Q.2. Q.2, prepare, any, do you want to call it an evaluation?
Sure.
I mean, it sounds like you want,
I just
you
want-
want documentation brought forward with potential outsourcing, staff needed, and an overall plan to move forward with monthly
So
billing.
you want to compare outsourcing the billing to keeping it in-house? Correct. On the monthly basis.
I want you to evaluate, and then I'd like a recommendation from staff to be provided the 16th.
On monthly billing.
On moving to monthly billing.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
Since we're going to be talking everything water, sewer, stormwater on the 16th of November, we might as well talk about that as well.
Make it a little more exciting.
Exactly.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
I have no discussion, it's been brought up, there seems to be a couple members that may be interested in changing that policy and moving towards monthly billing, but there is an understanding that will require more capital human cost, and possibly looking at maybe there are alternatives out there that we haven't considered, and I'm not suggesting staff, needs to be worried about, oh my goodness, I'm gonna lose my job, there's still customer service, and there's ways that we can change things. I just want to make sure that we're looking at available options that we have to us.
Councilmember Chapman. Further discussion? Mr. Boyce, will you please take the roll on action item Q.2? Motion on the floor for an evaluation to move to monthly billing and a review of internal processes and required staff needed versus an outsourcing for monthly billing. Did I get that right?
Sure.
Sure. Okay.
I think there's
I think we have an understanding.
We got it.
Okay.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
All right, Q.2 has passed 7-0. Moving on to action item R, ordinance number 1464 regarding permitting retail sales of marijuana in the city of Woodland, first reading.
Motion to table ordinance number 1464.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor by Councilmember Fredericks to table ordinance number 1464, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Do I go straight to a vote?
I'm not sure if there's discussion on the table.
Is
I
it-
think the debate can be whether or not it's a good idea to
Okay.
table this or not.
We'll just move it to you. Councilmember Fredericks.
Since nobody jumped out there with a motion to either approve, I'm going to make a motion that I would like to do, so that's why I made a motion to do this. And at this time, I won't debate the merits of ordinance number 1464, because that's not what we're debating here. We're debating whether or not this is a good idea to table or not. So I think it's a good idea to table this, and I'm only one member of this body.
Councilmember Rounds.
I concur with Mr. Fredericks.
Further discussion? Councilmember Plaza.
I think it would be a good idea, I think, so take it for what it's worth, that we actually take this to a vote, discuss the pros and cons of what, is being offered here, and let the citizens of the city that we represent know where each of us stand on this issue, and, potentially why we think that. I think if it's just left to be tabled, it'll be too easy for people to misrepresent what we're trying to do, or take things out of context, or just flat out lie about why it wasn't brought to a vote. So my suggestion would be to take it to a vote, and then you guys vote however you feel. But at least we'll have it out there.
Further? Oh, sorry, Mr. Smith?
So we voted on this in the past. My personal take is I don't really care that much whether or not it's legal to sell here or not, but we voted on it in the past. We've already said our piece on it. And it seems like we're kind of getting this jammed down our throats without really having time to plan this. So I'm okay with tabling it, and if somebody wants to come with a better plan versus jamming down our throat to vote on this right now, I would be okay with that. But it seems like this is getting pushed on us, and without proper planning at this point.
You guys can all call liquor board.
Councilmember Hall.
So that was why I didn't move to do anything. I hit a wrong button and lost the whole thingy. So anywho, I think as far as we're voting, if I remember correctly, and I was reading correctly, this is just a zoning thing, right? Is that not what this was? It was, what, a couple weeks ago? It's just a zoning thing.
Mr. Goddard?
Yes.
This is, the question on the table is this is just a zoning amendment.
For making retail sales of marijuana permitted use in the highway commercial C2
Yes.
zoning district. That's all this is a zoning thing.
It's a zoning text amendment.
Effectively allowing for the sale of marijuana in the city of Woodland.
If
correct?
we did not have a moratorium, is how I understood it.
So previously, the council, not long ago, I believe it was December of sorry, that might have been the moratorium date. So the moratorium had been rolling for several years, and the state had made some changes to collective garden language in the code, and it went from medicinal marijuana collectives to recreational marijuana standards. And the council had not made a decision on permanent retail sale decisions. And when we cleaned up the language on the moratorium, we went to a prohibition, and that was earlier this year. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact date. And this simply came up because of the situation of a potential business locating in town, and whether or not they would be able to open, or whether the council wanted to consider this while the discussion about the legalities of opening a business here in town based upon Liquor Control Board guidance is why this is before you. There was no actual guidance by the council other than an applicant had indicated they would like a zoning text amendment proposed. So it came to you as a land use application as opposed to a policy directive, which would normally come from the board to staff. So does that answer your question as to why it's a zoning text amendment?
No, I understood it to be, we were just voting on, we're not changing anything except zoning.
Yes.
Yeah.
The zoning, the underlying zoning code, yes, and only in the C2 district.
So we're not pioneering anything here, we're just changing a zone. Right, okay.
Which effectively does what, Mr. Goddard?
So there are limitations on where these businesses can be located. They have to be a certain distance from schools, daycares, parks, and other certain facilities. So geographically, there's a limited area in town. The C2 district further limits that to specific areas. So anybody who's interested in opening a business would have to go through all of those winnowing process to figure out where the possible locations are. we're not discussing anything about the number of facilities that would be available or the number of retail spaces that would be available. That would be driven by Liquor Control Board licensing limits.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on tabling action item R? Seeing none, motion on the floor to table ordinance number 1464. Mr. Boyce, will you please take the roll on that?
Councilmember Plaza.
No.
Councilmember Smith.
No.
Councilmember Holland.
No.
Councilmember Rounds.
Yes.
Councilmember Chapman.
No.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
No.
All right. The motion on the floor to table action item R did not pass 5-2. Moving on back on to action item R, ordinance number 1464 regarding permitting retail sales of marijuana in the city of Woodland, first reading.
Okay, I'll move, move to approve ordinance 1464.
And since I'm the one that said we should take it to a vote, I'll second it.
Moved by Councilmember Holland, seconded by Councilmember Plaza. Councilmember Holland.
No discussion.
Councilmember Plaza.
Okay, I'll try not to make this too long-winded. I'm actually kind of conflicted, to be perfectly honest with you. On one hand, I have my duty and the oath I swore to obey the laws of, the state and federal. While it's legal in the state, it's still illegal federally right now. And so, on one hand, I'm thinking about voting no just because of that. Citizens have, obviously brought their concerns to me about having recreational marijuana in town and the scourge it could possibly cause in the neighborhoods. That being said, marijuana's already here. Kids are already getting it. As a parent, well, I won't even say that because I would hope my kids weren't potheads, but that being said, I do happen to know that using marijuana for medical uses is a good thing. I've got friends who suffer from crazy migraines that put them in bed for days, and they use medicinal marijuana and they're able to function. So I get the positive advantages to it. And on the other hand, we're in a crazy time with COVID and all the restrictions that are being placed on us. So, on one hand, I'm thinking income from anywhere, why would we turn it away? But on the other hand, I'm a representative of the citizens of my town, and quite a few have contacted me or talked to me in person and voiced their concerns about it. So, just like I said, I'll try not to be too long-winded, so I'll just end this here. I don't know how I'm going to vote right at this moment. I'll figure it out when it gets to my, my turn. But it's a tough one.
Okay. Further discussion. Councilmember Rounds.
Well, I'm not sure, I am sure how I'm going to vote, but I just want to say one thing. The state is going to take most of the money, so Woodland is not going to get very much of the money, period. Maybe a little bit, but it's not going to be very much.
Okay.
And another thing is, kids may be using it now, but I'd still like to see it farther away where it's a little tougher for them to get it. So that's my opinion.
Councilmember Fredericks.
I have not changed my position on this, and nothing has really changed my opinion on this. First off, I believe it's a violation of our rules to hear something, which is why I voted against the agenda this evening. I believe it's against our rules of what governs our meetings, Robert's Rules of Order. where we're not allowed to talk about something that is in violation of the law. I would be willing to have this conversation if we could change it at the federal level and allow it. Then let's have that conversation. We all took an oath of office to support the laws of the United States. That's the very first one when you take your oath of office. So when there is an issue with that, the highest law of the land prevails. So change it at the federal level, then we can all have this discussion about whether or not it should be allowed. This is a split issue in this community. It is 50-50. Initiative 502 in this community failed by a very close margin. So I would expect this to come before the council and have it be somewhat split. Our community's split on it. We are not taking away anybody's ability to get this medically. People have the ability to get it medically already. Ms. Rounds is absolutely correct. The revenue that is generated from this, it is controlled by the state. And just as fast as they've given us revenue from the liquor, they've taken it away when times get tough. So there are some people that aren't here at the council meeting tonight that have approached me that are adamantly opposed to this, and they do not believe that adding retail sales marijuana adds value to the community in Woodland. That it does more of a disservice to the citizens than it does by adding value. So for those reasons, I am again going to vote no on adopting ordinance number 1464.
Mrs. Holland?
Okay, back to this being a zoning thing. So that's really all we're doing. We're not doing anything groundbreaking. It's a zoning decision. But the other parts, so some of these great comments over here about the devil's lettuce and how many people are against it. I really don't know if this is just because we're all sitting here and we're supposed to be all grown-ups and all, but I think you grossly underestimate the amount of weed that has been smoked in this community. For real, the 80s in this town, everybody was growing it in their backyard. So now it's a legal thing on a state level. I totally agree. I get asked this all the time about the state and federal part of it. It is a conflict because we are supposed to be upholding the law. I 100% agree. In this community, I think what people thought 10 years ago or 8 years ago, whenever it was that when y'all decided you needed a moratorium, which to me just seemed like, let's just keep putting it off. But things have changed and people's opinions have changed, and in 8 years, the feds haven't swooped in and done anything to anybody. We have a parks department with zero budget. We have a lot of things here with zero budget. So even if the state, if somebody, so we change the zoning and then somebody opens a store over by Lamaglass or wherever, and there's some money, that some money is better than no money. So that one, and again, we're back to dictating what type of businesses we want. I don't know why it's our job to bring business here or decide what types of businesses can be here, because we have municipal code for strip clubs, but we don't have a strip club. But somebody could come in and decide they want a strip club, and then what? We make a moratorium on a strip club, even if it's for a strip club. So anywho, that's just kind of my rebuttal to some of those comments over there, because I've been up way too late and I haven't had food. So I could go a lot longer on this one, but I think realistically, we should just kind of look at it. It's a zoning thing that Mr. Goddard's asked for. So there you go. Sorry, Ms. Monty, I kind of interrupted your hand.
That's okay.
Oh, I didn't see it, I'm sorry. Mr. Smith.
We voted on this. We've put a moratorium in place. If we want to go back and try to amend that, then I could see changing the zoning on it. Like I said, personally, I would rather deal with somebody who smokes pot than being drunk, and alcohol's a big part of people's lives also. I personally know people that do it medically, and I think there's a better process than what we're going through right now to make sure that if this comes into Woodland, we have it done right. I think we need to start the process, and we need to do it the right way.
Mr. Fredericks?
I want to clarify because I think it's somewhat misleading that we're suggesting, oh, all we're doing is changing the zoning. We're changing the zoning to allow for the retail sales of marijuana. That's what we're doing. She's interrupting.
Sorry.
Ms. Holland?
That's what we're doing. Is that correct, Mr. Goddard? Let the record reflect that shaking his head in the affirmative. I want to make sure we're clear on what we're doing.
Very good. Further discussion?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Mr. Boyce, will you please take the vote?
Can the chair please restate the motion that's currently on the floor?
Motion on the floor is to approve ordinance number 1464 regarding permitting retail sales of marijuana in the city of Woodland, first reading.
Councilmember Smith.
No. No.
Councilmember Holland.
Sure, why not? Yes.
Councilmember Rounds.
No.
Councilmember Chapman. Aye. Councilmember Fredericks.
No.
Councilmember Graham.
No.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye. All right. Action item R has not passed with 4 noes and 3 yeses. We have now come to the moment of adjournment for our meeting. Moved by Councilmember Rounds.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Plaza. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The time is now 9:49.